right, welcome to the Empirical Scouting Podcast with your hosts, Taylor and Taylor. Today we're going to be diving into our top running backs for 2024. I'm interested to see where we're different on and where we're the same. I already know of one that we're probably going to be quite different. So I will go ahead and give you the floor. Who is your top five, or who is your number 5 running back for this 2024 draft?
So first of all, I would like to say there's almost zero separation between 1 through 5 for me. They are all within their own tier. They're all graded in the second round for me. My number 5 right now is TreyVeon Henderson from Ohio State. He's obviously burst onto the scene as a freshman, and he's shown some great acceleration and some great lateral agility. He's athletic. We know he's athletic. He's shown he can be a decent receiver, but he's also had that injury last year. He missed a lot of time when he played. He wasn't really the same kind of guy. It kind of to be determined if he's going to be able to bounce back, if he's going to be healthy this year, if the foot's going to be a reoccurring type of thing that keeps bothering him. We've seen that in the past with a guy like, Leonard Fournette had foot issues follow him for what seemed like forever. Really the only negative besides the injury that I can notice with TreyVeon Henderson right now is at times his pacing on plays seems a little rushed, but overall he's a good prospect. He's very athletic and he could be a dynamic weapon. It's just to be determined if he's going to be healthy enough to really be that for our teams.
Yeah, he's actually my number 4 running back, but yeah, 5'10", 212. Last year, I know injury riddled, but 107 rushes for 571 yards, 5.3 yards per carry clip, and 6 touchdowns. Only caught 4 balls for 28 yards, 7 yards per catch, and a touchdown. But it's kind of like what you said. It's really hard to scout him. 2021 burst on the scene. Great. Shows explosiveness. Showed his vision that he could find any hole that really talented offensive line would make for him. And then you look at the beginnings and middle parts of 2022, and you don't see any of that. He's just kind of a dude. He's doing well. It's hard not to do well at Ohio State, but what I saw in 2021 was lost. And obviously there's, the injury talk and, proven that, towards the end of the year, he just couldn't play anymore. And I think that was definitely hampering him. But it's just hard to really project where he's going to be because he could easily be the first guy off the board in the running back position, of course. But he could easily be the RB1 in this class. He returns to form in 2021. He would be my number 1. But in reality, he's going to fall somewhere between his 2021 self and his 2022 self. And I'm a little bit hesitant. I almost have put him at 5 as well just because of that. But for me, I am going to bet a little bit on the talent I saw and hope he can return to form. My only other negative was I didn't see him really getting extra yards. He wasn't consistently breaking too many tackles or making guys miss. It was kind of like he's great at finding the hole. And, that offensive line is going to create plenty of holes. They have, top 10 pick after top 10 pick on that offensive line. And he finds those holes really well, but he just kind of takes what's there. And it's really long games because, great blocking. They're probably overpowering the defense at times, but it's not I don't see it being attributed to what he's doing as much as what the offensive line is doing. And that was just one note after watching a few games because I went back and watched 2021 a little bit and then also 2022 just to be fair. And it's hard to knock him on that because that offensive line has been really good. And if there's a wide open hole, he should hit it. He does hit it, and he gets those yards. And even if it's a house call, it's not really what he did. He just found the hole, and it was wide open, and it was an easy run for a touchdown. So it's not really a negative, but it's the only negative I could find outside of the injury. And it was something that I want to look for in 2023 because, again, it's going to be really hard to project him before we see what he does on the field now.
So who is your number 5 then?
So my number 5 is Donovan Edwards, the other Michigan running back, 6'1".
He's my number 4.
Okay, perfect. So we can flip flop there. And like I said, for me, I was back and forth between them because it's how much I want to bet on TreyVeon coming back to his 2021 self. But at number 5, I put Donovan Edwards, 6'1", 210 pounds, 140 rushes, but for 991 yards, that's 7.1 yard per carry and 7 touchdowns. It was quite impressive. He had 18 catches, but for 200 yards, 11.1 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns. He once Corum went down, especially, but even with Corum, you could see how impressive he was as a runner. He's more shifty, and to me, he can hit a home run on any single play. He has that explosiveness. He's extremely athletic. To me, he's more athletic than Blake Corum as well. And out the backfield, like I was watching him run routes downfield, not just the dump offs. Like he was catching the ball downfield. He made some jumping, spinning catches downfield, and that's something I love as a running back. Is you can catch a screen. Any running back can catch a screen, a little dump off, a 5-yard out. Like any running back can pretty much do that. But can you get down the field and still catch the ball? And I think that's something that is gonna, be key to his success. It's also like a positive for me, which is ironically also a negative for Blake Corum, is like, to me, Michigan's going to run Blake Corum into the ground. They already have, and they're going to continue to do so. So Donovan Edwards is going to be more fresh and able to hit that home run when he touches the ball. Now, he does have a slimmer frame, but being at 6'1", I think he can build up a little bit more. But I'm just really interested to see the dynamic of that backfield because obviously we both like J.J. McCarthy as well. But we know Michigan's going to run the rock. And I think they're going to run Blake Corum into the ground, which is a kind of a negative for me on him. And I'm sure we'll get to him later. But for me, I looked at Donovan Edwards and I was really impressed. Even more impressed than I was during the season when I was watching.
So I have him at 4. And, like, I'm going to be completely cards on the table honest right now. The only reason I have him at 4 is because I try to, like, hold myself back, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like I was getting carried away with my grading of him. In my, like when I went through and initially graded him, he ended up being my RB1. And I was like, okay, I'm probably overrating him a little bit on some categories. And so he's my RB4. But I could gush about him for days. Like, I really, really, really was impressed about him when I watched him. He's got the size. He's got power and strength behind that size. He's not going to be like a 4.3 burner, but the dude has above average long speed. Like, he has the long speed to do a house call when he needs to. He's shown he can be a good receiver. He's got hands that I don't know. I was very impressed with his receiving ability, to be honest. I think he paces himself well. I think he has some elusiveness to his game. Like he's not the best lateral athlete. Like I don't think he's gonna, stop and switch and change directions like on a dime the way some of these guys can. But I think he's got some elusiveness to his game. I haven't had a chance to watch any All-22 for him, so I don't really know how his vision is, truthfully. I really kind of question if his vision is like the kind of vision that's going to lend itself to making plays on his own, or if it's just like this guy's hitting holes that are going to be there. But like depending on what his season looks like and depending on his athletic testing, like the guy's got a chance to be a first-round running back, in my opinion, because he's got good size, he's got the receiving skill set, and he's got he's a good runner. Like, he can be a complete back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was something that we're just going to have to wait and see, again, how they use him in the backfield. But I think it's going to be one of those situations where he's going to put up numbers, but once he gets to the combine and he has his pro day, I think it's going to be one of those situations where we see him rise up and up. I didn't really do too many comps for people, but for me, I wrote with the question mark, of course. I was like, it kind of reminded me back, and it was like one of the first years I was like really looking at players beyond just fantasy reasons. But it kind of reminded me a little bit of Kareem Hunt, especially with his receiving game. They're similar in stature, but they're both really good out the backfield. And it was one of those things where I want to see how he's used and what he does on the field this season to really, solidify what I believe in him. But as you said before, any of these guys I could see as RB1 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't have a good comp for him, and I didn't have one for Henderson.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough right now for some of these guys for me, because I get so nitty and gritty with my comps, to be honest.
Yeah, you always have the comps from like 1985.
I mean, shit. The quarterback one I had for what was it? Penix. I had Achilles Smith.
Yeah,
or something like.
I noticed that. I was waiting for you to say something, but
it was like, yeah, I was how old, but. Yeah. I do have a comp for my next guy, my number 3 guy.
Okay.
Raheim Sanders from Arkansas. He was my number 1 when I initially posted running backs a few months ago for summer scouting for me. He's my number 3 right now. My comp for him, it was Jamal Lewis from, good old Ravens days. Raheim, 6'2", 237. Dude is a unit. He's shown he's got the frame, he's got power, obviously. Like, the dude will run and break tackles. He's got pretty good vision. He sees cutback lanes pretty well, and he's even shown he's got some receiving chops out of the backfield. He's pretty patient, and he's a north-south runner, which is great. The only things about him is the breakaway speed just really isn't there. You can't rely on this guy to be hitting home runs for you. He's going to be grinding yards, it feels like. But, teams need that. And truthfully, I thought the same kind of thing about, a guy like Ramondre Stevenson. And Ramondre's done pretty damn well for himself up in New England. So Raheim, my thing is the long speed, the burst, the acceleration. It's not necessarily special for him, but he's got, the rest of the skill set right now, except for he's not going to be a guy that you split out wide like McCaffrey or Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan, but
yeah. And
not everybody can do that anyways.
No, and I mean, at being 6'2", 242 pounds, it's just not going to happen. He's not going to be able to do that. But 222 yards rushing for 1,443 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, and 10 touchdowns. But something that you noted and that I didn't really realize, because I was going into it thinking, okay, he can catch passes out the backfield on little screens and dumps, and a lot of those work. But he did have 28 catches for 271 yards at a 9.7 yards per carry clip and 2 touchdowns, and it was just not something I was expecting. I literally went out and sought after some tape where he was catching the ball. And again, he's not getting downfield. He's not going to be doing all that, kind of like what we were saying with Donovan Edwards, but he's not expected to. I mean, he's an absolute hoss. Huge frame, and use it to his advantage. I will go ahead and say he is my number 1. He is my number 1 quarterback. He is my number 1 running back as of right now. He's very north and south, but he has that ability to make quick cuts when needed while continuing to go north and south. He's not going to go east and west to try to get around someone. He's just going to make a quick cut because he knows, if he can just get the defender a little bit off balance or a little bit out of position, he's going to break through that tackle. It's just going to be an arm tackle that he doesn't even feel. And it's not a comp, but that reminded me so much of watching Nick Chubb because he just had that sneaky wiggle, that sneaky speed to where he hits a hole, he makes a little cut. Next thing you know, you look at the stats and there's 3 broken tackles because he made 1-2 cuts and 3 arm tackles just bounce off his body. Now I'm not saying it's Nick Chubb.
The crazy thing is though, like Nick Chubb at UGA after the injury, like he still was, I think, more like explosive and had more burst and long speed than Raheim does.
Nick Chubb definitely has more speed than he does.
UGA the last couple of years, like the dude felt like the word I'm looking for, like it's like a between the tackles hoss, like rumbler that isn't gonna. I did not think Nick Chubb would end up being in the NFL what he's ended up being, like as explosive with the big plays that he is. Like in his athleticism, like I came back isn't necessarily the right way to phrase it, but like the athleticism came back for Chubb. Yeah. He finally healed from the injury, and that's great. It's just not what I thought he was going to be when he came out of UGA after seeing the way he played there. So I think like saying it reminds you of him is actually kind of fair.
Because like you said, he always runs between the tackles. Yeah, he has the speed to get around the corner, but he made his bread and butter to me with those 1 or 2 cuts in the hole. And just because he's so large and so powerful that odds are he's breaking through any tackles that are right there. And you're going to have to gang tackle him, trip him up, just do whatever, throw your body into him and whatever you can to slow him down. And it was just something that reminded me of watching Nick Chubb at Georgia. But that was the one negative I have is the speed. But like you said, like he's not going to be asked to do that in the NFL. Today's NFL, there's probably going to be a committee, and Raheim Sanders would be an amazing, first and second down guy, goal line back, short yardage back, just gets that 60% of carries that you don't want your scat back or third down back to get. So that's why he was my number one.
Perfect in a role of being like a better version of Roschon Johnson to Khalil Herbert for the Bears right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly like what Roschon is. And then like I'm trying to think of like we talked about Thunder and Lightning on the first pod episode, but Raheim is a guy that is ready-made to be the Thunder to someone's Lightning, in my opinion.
Immediately. And that's what it's – I'm not sure if he's going to finish the year as my RB1, but as of right now, like he's my favorite. He's super productive. And I think right now he's the guy set up to walk into the NFL and have success day one.
Yeah, no, like I think he's gonna be ready. So who was your number 3 running back then?
My number 3 has probably set a record because it's the 3rd year in a row that he's 17 years old. But Braelon Allen, 6'2", 240, 230 carries for 1,242 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, and 11 touchdowns. 13 yards for 13 receptions for 104 yards. 8 yards per catch, no touchdowns. Not something I expect from him. Another big boy. It's a workout warrior. I mean, that dude is strong. The similarities I saw with Raheim Sanders, I could also kind of say with Nick Chubb in a different way because that man throws weight around like Nick Chubb workout videos. He has that short area speed, and it's kind of impressive to see the numbers he puts up at Wisconsin. Now, they always have a history of running backs. They run the ball a lot. They run their running backs on the ground. They have so many guys that have gone in the NFL and succeeded. But the amount of stacked boxes that Wisconsin sees it's got to be up there at the top for the country. And he still finds ways to make guys miss, break through tackles, and puts up over 1,200 yards. So to me, it's very impressive. Also, if I did the math right, he's going to be 20 in like the first time he steps on a regular season
He will be.
NFL.
So I've done the math on all guys' birthday. Excuse me. All the guys' birthdays I can find, and if you base it off of I think I based it off September 14th, 2024 for everybody. He will be 20.68.
Okay, yeah. So
for week one of his rookie season.
It's just impressive what he can do at such a young age. And I've seen him at, RB1, RB2, RB3. And to me, the only thing that I'm hesitant on with him is, yes, the straight line speed is not going to be there. Same thing with Raheim Sanders. It's just not going to happen. He's going to be fast enough, but he's not breaking away and running away from, DBs. And he also has been used as a receiver, something that we've seen historically at Wisconsin. I mean, I personally, I was on the bandwagon. I didn't think Jonathan Taylor was going to be able to catch the ball, and he's done perfectly fine in the NFL for what he needs to be. Obviously, he's not a receiving back, but he can succeed in that sense. But for me, it's another one of those situations where, I mean, he's, like you said, he's going to be 20 years old still, stepping onto the field with, I don't know, the amount of hits on his body of a 28-year-old veteran. That man gets so many carries that he has a big frame. I don't like to project injuries, but it just has me a little bit worried.
I mean, so he's my RB2, so we're similar. It seems like we know who the last guy will be, but I'm not as concerned about the carries right now because of how young he is and being realistic. Running backs like him have a crap ton of carries in high school too. So it is what it is. These guys coming into the league with a lot of carries. Bijan had how many carries in high school? Probably, you know what I mean. Braelon Allen, to me, he, like you said, he's not gonna have the long speed. The juice to turn the corner isn't necessarily there. But he's young. He's got a great frame, good weight. He's been on Feldman's Freaks list, I think, 2 years in a row now. He reportedly has this is per the 2022 version of Feldman's Freaks list. Braelon Allen reportedly has a 32.5 vert, 9080 broad, 1.49 10-yard split, 4.16 shuttle, and a 6.91 3-cone, while squatting 600 pounds and cleaning over 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Using the relative athletic score unofficially, that's a 9.77, which for his weight and size, pretty good. Anything over a 9.5 is pretty dang good, to be quite honest. He doesn't have a lot of production right now as a receiver, which we knew was going to happen at Wisconsin. Wondering how that's going to go this year now that they have Fickle there, who throws the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, and everyone's expecting that offense to throw the ball a little bit more, and I'm just kind of like...
I mean, they brought in Mordecai from SMU.
Yeah.
They have Longo as the offensive coordinator now, who is coming from UNC, and he was, Drake May's guy last year and Sam Howell's guy for that. And then Longo was also the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss when they had Tiamu and Metcalf and A.J. Brown, and I think, the beginning of Corral before Lane Kiffin got there. So Longo's got a history of producing passing offense as well. But it's to be determined, I guess, how Braelon's going to be with it. Braelon's shown to me, I've seen some stuff of him where, he is able to bring in, catches away from his body that you don't always see running backs able to do. And he's got some good one-cut abilities, cut, go up. And he's strong. He's got contact balance. I like his patience. I like his vision. It's just going to end up being the speed, the burst. The real concern like that not everyone picks up on probably like to me is that his feet can stop sometimes when he gets into like the hole and it's not like wide open. So when he gets into contact and he hits the hole, his feet will stop moving, which isn't necessarily what you want from a running back of his size. But I mean, that's something that I think you can coach, to be honest. So I mean, I like him. I think he's worth an early second round pick, to be honest. If I was running a franchise and needed a running back, he reminded me of Chris Beanie Wells from Ohio State back in the day, and the Cardinals for a while, I believe. Yeah, I think he can step onto the field and give you a good 4 years of being first, second, maybe third down back. Maybe have a guy rotate in on third downs, and after those 4 years, maybe let him find his own way in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a guy like there's not going to be that many Derrick Henrys anymore. Guys that can just take load after load after load and just at 28, 29 still be chucking along. So yeah, who is your number 2 running back then?
So Braelon was my number 2. Corum's my number 1.
Okay.
Corum, had that torn meniscus last year, and he's a smaller back. He's listed at 5'8", 210. He hasn't really done a lot as receiver, and he had 7 snaps out wide in 2022, which you don't love to see that from a running back that's smaller usually, but he's got some great pacing. He's got some big playability. His ankles are so flexible. Like I know that's a weird thing to like emphasize, but like the dude, it's impressive to me. Like he leverages blocks and he leans in and gets in as tight as possible before he cuts into the hole. And that's not something that all running backs can do well. Leveraging, your blocks in front of you and using that to make space for yourself is valuable, in my opinion. He's got really good contact balance for a running back of his size. Like, he bounces off of guys at times, and just keeps going. And he sees the field well. He sees cutback lanes well, and that leads to the home runs for him. My comp was Ray Rice, similar sizes. Ray Rice was probably a little bit, thicker build wise, but they were similar weight and height. And Ray Rice was kind of a bigger play type of guy at Rutgers back in the day, and he had obviously a pretty good run in the pros for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, Corum's my number 1 right now. I'm a Corum fan.
Yeah.
And
expected
I think
from
he
this
could
side.
be electric.
Yeah, and he is. I mean, he's only 5'8", but 213, so he's not a slender build per se. Plenty of time to build on that. I mean, last year he completely balled out before the injury. I mean, 247 rushes for 1,463 yards at a 5.9 yards per carry clip and 18 touchdowns. I mean, dude was gunning for that Heisman until he got hurt. Did have 11 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown, so showed some ability. But I think we both agree that Donovan Edwards might be the better receiver out of those two. I agree. I like his vision. He can read a defense with ease. He knows where to go. He knows how to, where the cutback lane's coming. And he can, if it's open, he's gonna hit the home run. Obviously a shorter frame. He's gonna be a little bit older. You could probably tell me exactly the age that he'll be, but I think it's gonna be around 23, if I'm thinking right. But
23.81. Okay, so he's going to be almost 24, yeah, which is not great for a running back.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where I guarantee you he's going to drop him down in the draft just because of that. I don't think a team wants to really bring in an almost 24-year-old running back. after their rookie contract, assuming he's a day 2 pick. I mean, he'll be nearly 26, 27, and just they're not going to want to resign
He'd
him.
be not someone you want to sign to a second
Exactly.
contract.
So it's going to be like a 1-year stint. Hopefully, you can get what you want out of him and just let him go sign as a backup somewhere, or as a 1-2 punch with someone else. But he's also, like I said earlier with Donovan Edwards, he's already been kind of ran into the ground. I mean, they feed him, understandably so. I mean, because he produces, and I think they're going to do it again, even coming off that injury. So it's another wear and tear guy. The difference with a guy like Braelon Allen and Blake Corum is a good 5 inches in height and a good 30 pounds of weight. So I'm a little hesitant. I have him as the next guy, right? He's at 6 for me right now.
Really? He's not even in your top 5?
No, he's not. He's not. I think for me, with Blake Corum, he's probably the safest. Because he's going to come in and he's going to produce. Assuming the injury's all good, he's going to produce. You can put him on an NFL team right now, and I would think he could be a solid, he's not going to, put up crazy stats for you. He's not going to win you games, but he's going to do what he needs to. He's going to get, 18 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, it's just going to happen. He's extremely safe, but as far as like a upside swing, I am hesitant on it. And I admittedly put him at 6 because I want to see what he's doing off the injury. I want to see him come back and be able to handle, a workload that he was handling before, and produce the numbers that he was producing before. Because, I mean, you remember last year when we talked about Blake Corum's, like, you were early on him. You liked him a lot. I admittedly wasn't. And as the year went on, I started to admit, like, okay, this guy has some Heisman capabilities. And, I was right before the injury, I was like, okay, he could hit. It's him or Caleb Williams. One of them's winning the Heisman. He got hurt. It clearly, I mean, I think it hurt Michigan to not have that other running back to rely on, another playmaker. They needed to run the ball, especially against someone like TCU. They need to control that clock. They didn't. They tried to get into a shootout with a shootout team, and they lost. I mean, for our guy J.J. McCarthy, he didn't really do too well. But I believe if they had Blake Corum, it could have been a different ball game. They could have just handed the ball off to him, hand the ball off to Donovan Edwards, control the clock. They'd be moving the pile. They would score, take some momentum out of Max Duggan's arm, and just, they would have. I think they would have probably succeeded a lot more than try to win a shootout with a team that is built to win a shootout. But yeah, so going to my last guy, number 2, kind of.
Is it Benson or is it Shipley?
It's going to be Trey Benson. Like I said in the quarterback episode, I'm kind of all aboard the Florida State bandwagon this year. I will say, if I had to choose my favorite out of Trey Benson and Jordan Travis, it's going to be Trey Benson. I am more confident in Trey Benson than I am in Jordan Travis in terms of success. I mean, 6'1", 223. Only had 154 carries, but nearly hit 1,000 yards, 6.4 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns. The thing I am excited for is he only had 13 receptions, but for 144 yards, 11.1 yards per reception. And I think there's more in him. I think he can actually be, a well above average pass catcher out of the backfield. He is explosive, and he has that home run threat. I mean, I was just watching, run after run where he's just making guys miss, breaking tackles with ease. I think I read on someone's article that he was number 1 in broken tackles per play, or he's at least in the top 5. He put up some numbers that like guys like Javonte Williams and Bijan Robinson were putting up in terms of breaking tackles. Just he runs straight through. Like, if you don't have your full body on him, you're not tackling him. End of story. And you would think that would be more like a Raheim Sanders and Braelon Allen description, but Trey Benson, like, it was just wild to see how many times he could just make a guy miss, or just run right through you. And I was I came overall impressed because I knew about him kind of when he was at Oregon. He wasn't starting. He had a major injury, I think his freshman year. He came back his sophomore year, which is buried on the depth chart with guys that were super productive at Oregon, but not NFL talent. And so then he transferred to Florida State. Wasn't really getting too much run, but then once he got run, he just completely took over. I am curious as what it's one of those situations like if this is what you saw in practice, which obviously they didn't, but if like we're seeing it now, we're seeing him, destroy top college defenses with ease, but for 2 years, one at Oregon and one at Florida State for essentially almost a full year, he couldn't be named the starter. It's like what was going on there. So just a little bit hesitant. Another situation where it's like, am I missing something? Or is it just he just wasn't ready? But he did suffer that injury, like I said, I believe his freshman year. So he's not really injury prone, but just something to keep an eye out. But yeah, I came away. I think Trey Benson could possibly become my RB1 at the end of this year, and I would be all aboard that train. I think I talked to one of our buddies, Austin, into drafting him in a team we co-own, a Debbie team we co-own, trading up and taking Trey Benson in a mid-round. So I've already got a share of him in fantasy. I plan to get more of him, and I'm extremely impressed with Trey Benson.
I'm not all the way there yet for Benson, truthfully. I see the power and I see the frame and I see good acceleration, but I don't think the long speed matches what the reported athletic testing is. The lack of production as a receiver, like in terms of just like volume, concerns me because like low volume but high yards kind of tells me that like like design plays obviously they weren't like teams weren't always game planning for a receiving threat from him because he's not typically that. And like he could do more, he could improve this next year for sure. But I just when I watched him, my initial watch through was I didn't see as good of athleticism as what he's been billed as, and I see a lot of a guy trying to. I see a lot of bouncing outside to stretch plays outside east west rather than going north south, which I can't stand. I can't stand watching a guy that's 6'1", 220 pounds trying to bounce it outside and getting -2 yards on the run rather than just taking the 3 yards that he was given.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, quick recap. I had TreyVeon Henderson at 5, Donovan Edwards at 4, Raheim Sanders at 3, Braelon Allen at 2, and Blake Corum at 1. I believe you had you had Edwards at 5,
yep.
Henderson at 4, Allen at 3, Benson at 2, and Raheim at 1.
Yep. We're along the same. We're along the same pathway. Just
yeah.
Depending, I'm sure our tiers are a lot more similar than our actual rankings.
I'm gonna give 2 honorable mentions to a couple guys I personally like, even though they are not in my top 5. E.J. Smith from Stanford, Emmitt Smith's son. Yep. I told you about him last year. Yep. I like him. I think he's got a lot of talent. His season got ended due to an injury last year. So to be determined if he can kind of cash in on what I think that talent is. And then Bucky Irving at Oregon has some electric athleticism to him. He's ready-made to be the lightning to somebody's thunder, so to speak. So 2 honorable mentions I just wanted to throw out there.
I know I had E.J. Smith as one of my guys right after Blake Corum. The only other guy that we haven't talked about that I did have on my list, which you kind of alluded to, was Will Shipley. I like those kind of backs. Obviously, he's not going to be he's not going to be the thunder to anyone's lightning. He's going to have to be that lightning. But he is like a hell of an athlete. He's a lax bro. He ran track, and something I kept seeing over and over again was that he's a black belt in karate, apparently. So he just is so natural coming out the backfield in the pass game. It just comes with ease, and he's gonna put up he's a guy that I think will get drafted probably late day 2, if not round 4 for sure, because the team's going to be able to split him out, into the slot, bring him out of the backfield, and just beat basically a slot receiver, and just be able to create mismatches because he's so good at it. He's obviously needs to add some strength and weight. He needs to stop fumbling. That's a big thing if he wants to have success. He doesn't have really breakaway speed, which isn't something I really thought of until I started watching him try to break away. And usually you see those defenders slowly drift out of the picture, and instead you see them catching up in the picture. And I was
like, that's kind of caught off guard by how not fast he was. And I'm not saying he's slow, but
no, but it's a short area.
He wasn't what I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, but I think he's like a guy that I would be, I'd be pounding the table for in like a mid round for fantasy. Once he gets drafted, because he's just going to get those like 50, 60, even 70, depending on team's targets. I have no idea
if these guys match up athletically at all. Like, I don't know what the combine was for him, or I don't even think he was invited to the combine. Danny Woodhead, almost like the white guy that is a great receiving back, but it's not going to be you're not going to give it to him on first down and let him try to get 4 yards for you.
Yeah.
He's a receiving back for you, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't think Shipley's going to be a great runner. I think he's a good running back that's that can be a pass catcher.
Yeah, and he puts up numbers at Clemson. I think he had almost 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns on the ground. But it's just he's going to get a handful of carries a game, and then he's going to be expected to be peppered with targets. I mean, we see guys, like you said, Danny Woodhead, he got rushes. James White, he would get rushes, but that's not what they were doing. They gave him rushes so teams didn't think, oh, this has to be a pass play because he's on the field. And that's what Will Shipley's going to be. But he was another guy that I was impressed with, just less so as a running back. I'll put it that way. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap up our 2024 preview of running backs. I'm Taylor, and that's Taylor, and we will see y'all next time.
1, 2,